In the last few weeks, the former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, has not hidden a desire to heed calls for him to vie for the office of the president. And so, meeting with the president, whom he hopes to succeed, issues of the party's upcoming convention and security was central as he finally breaks the ice on his intention to pick the presidential ticket.
It's a categorical declaration. You've gotten that truth from me that I've informed Mr. President of my ambition.
Earlier in November 2021, the chieftain of the All Progressives Congress declared that he was still consulting with political stakeholders.
I will still effectively and widely consult, particularly brainstorm with my friends and find a way to come out, find a date to come out openly and tell Nigerians.
Now, the APC chieftain doggedly moves to clinch the ticket, unconcerned about any other contender, particularly after the president has not raised any objections.
I don't want to discuss individuals now. I must discuss myself. I have the confidence, the vision, the capacity to build on the foundation of Mr. President and turn Nigeria better. I've done that with commitment and unyielding, in Lagos State. You've seen that experience and the capacity to turn things around, and that is what we are doing. The confusion, the drift of the past in PDP is being corrected, and you can't, take away from that.
The former Lagos State governor also encourages the executive and the legislature to review the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, promising that the outcome of such review will be complied with. Now, being tagged the kingmaker instead of the king is apparently not deterring the APC chieftain from pursuing his ambition in spite of anyone's perception. As a matter of fact, he promises that he will declare officially to Nigerians while assuring that the APC National Convention will certainly hold. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Well, it's moved from the realm of speculation. It is no longer speculation. It's now the news. Former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has declared his intention to run for president. How does that change the dynamics within his party? Well, we asked his party members this morning, and one of them is in our studio. Fuad Oki is a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress. You're welcome to our studios here in Abuja.
Good morning, my friend.
So finally, the cat is out of the bag. We're no longer wondering what is in the bag. How did you receive this?
Well, I am not surprised. Not an inch surprised, because it's a build-up to something. And we've been on this, I think, over 2 years now. So the issue of will he run, will he not run, when? So now we know it's now. We know it's running. As you said, that now we know what's in the bag. I think the next 1 or 2 weeks will tell us exactly what he's up to. Wanting to run, or I've told the president that I'll run. For me, it's just, a prep. And he's promised to address Nigerians. So I'll wait and see exactly, what is coming to tell Nigerians. It is then we'll begin to look at, his aspiration.
What do you mean by what he's up to? Or what is up to how?
I can stand up tomorrow to say I want to run, for the office of president. It doesn't matter. You'll need to know what I'm coming with. There are so many questions to be answered, which will speak to capacity, which will speak to ability, and some other factors. So for me, we are still at the preparatory stage.
How does this change the dynamics within your party, though? I mean, everyone knows, and he accepts as well, that he is a kingmaker within the All Progressives Congress. So now that the kingmaker wants to be king, how is that being received by those who already want to be king as well?
They are different. I have been in this business for quite some time, and because I have been in a position to midwife several elections, does not mean I'll wake up one day and say I want to be president. So being a kingmaker is something, different. Being an aspirant, you see, in this game you have categories. You have, what I call. Before you become a candidate, you must contest. So you are a contestant. Before you become a contestant, you are a contender and a pretender. So you move from being a pretender of wanting to be to wanting to contend, as an aspirant, and then wanting to contest, and then becoming candidate.
Well, certainly some people will say that you cannot call Senator Tinubu, or shall I say Asiwaju Tinubu, a pretender. Some people will say that
in this business, that's where listen, Mokba, in this business, I'm telling you the way it is. A pretender, when we're all speculating, will he not? Is he pretending? Does he have something else to do? Now he's contending.
Oh, he's a contender now.
Yes.
But he was once.
Yes, all
he never
of them.
Skipped the stage
there
of
are
a pretender?
there are several others that are still contemplating. Should I throw my hat in the ring? Am I good enough? What do I want? They are pretenders. Once they clearly come out to say, I want to be, then they are contender. And they move from there to contest the party primaries and then become or not become the party's candidate. So being a kingmaker is something. Throwing your hat in the ring, it's another different ball game.
That's why I ask, how does this change the dynamics of your party?
Well, for now, you see, it's just one person now that have clearly come out to say, I am going to run. I will not begin to look at them all until I begin to see another person, maybe in the next couple of days, maybe in another 1 or 2 weeks, coming out to do same.
Okay, let me put it this way. Since you say that there are categories and there are pretenders, there's still lots of pretenders right now.
Lots out there.
So how does this, does it shut up the pretenders? Does it give them the courage to come out and become contenders as well? What happens to those?
Time will tell. Again, time will tell. I will not jump at saying, oh, this. I'll wait a couple of more days. I'll wait another 1 week or another 2 weeks. But what he has done now is bail the cat. What you say in a co-balance, that any liar coawo. That's what he has done.
To say if you're brave enough.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. So,
it's not changing anything as of today. It will begin to change some things, possibly turn it around, or otherwise in the next couple of days, maybe 1 week.
So you accept and you agree that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is no ordinary
it's a
person.
big fish.
It's a big fish. So in many ways, it does change the dynamics for those who would be contenders who would have loved to throw their hat in the ring.
Again, for me, not now. And you know why? Prior to yesterday, there have been several pretenders on the turf.
Prior to yesterday? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will also want to see how many of the pretenders will follow suit. It's then I begin to say, oh, this is obvious, he's meeting with the president and his categorical statement that he is going to run has changed the dynamics. Until then, for me, I will not. I'll just look at some other things around the contest.
Such as?
What do I want from a Nigerian president, or what do I want from the next Nigerian president? Against the background of where we have found ourselves, the issue of security or insecurity, the issue of economy, what are we doing, especially about the weak and the vulnerable in our midst? What policy framework is that man coming up with? What are his proper framework? When you look at the figures of unemployment, when you look at the figures of our youths that are hopeless, you want to interrogate very, very deeply who you want the next president to be.
So he says that he is building on the foundation set by President Muhammadu Buhari. You seem to think that foundation is not very strong.
Truth be told, today in Nigeria, and that's why I said I'll want to wait to see other pretenders you may want to call gladiators come out. I belong to the APC, but we must speak truth to power. Today, in some part of the country, you can boastfully say, I want to build on the achievements or accomplishments of this administration and this president. In other zones of this country, they will stone you. So for the man that is coming out, I want to see how he will balance that. Because again, you need the support of the man on the reign, right? You need the support of the man on the reign. So where do you tell people, party supporters, party members now, where, which zone or at what point do you want to tell party supporters that, you know what, I'm going to build on what this administration is doing? Which zone do you, or would you also say, either loudly or silently, that I'm going to turn things around from the way they are? It's a big challenge. It is a big challenge coming nearer home.
But I want to ask you, and I do not know what category you put him in, because when he was asked about the ambition of the vice president, he said he'd rather speak about himself.
And I agree with him.
But what do you think?
That's experience.
What do you think this does? Because there have been those who he hasn't said anything, but there are those who have said if he wants to, he's eminently qualified.
Absolutely.
And there are those who are already putting up campaigns on his behalf. But I'm assuming, that eventually he decides to throw his hat into the ring. How do you think this declaration affects his own chances?
They are equals. You see, you want to look at individuals. You want to look at antecedent. You want to look at experience. But you want to look at what you have on ground. By all standards, the vice president is the vice president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, by all standards, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, is what I would call a doyen in political strategy, sagacity, and what you have. One has come out to say, I want to run. For me, the other is a pretender. Again, until he comes out to say, I also want to run. And when that happens, I remember yesterday I was talking to somebody and I said, I know for a fact that the vice president will also come out. And the person said, are you for real? Will he run against his boss? I said, boss in politics? That's your associates. So, whether it is a moral question or otherwise about him wanting to run or about him, coming out to run, it doesn't have a place in politics because they are both qualified eminently. One is basking in his antecedent and accomplishments when he was governor of Lagos State. The other is coming out to say, hey, look, I am vice president of this country. I've been in the saddle going to 7 years now. And this is what I have done as chairman, Council of, States. This is what I've done as, chairman, National Economic Council. This is what I've done. So these are the things the two are coming up with. Right? So as far as this game is concerned, therefore, you are talking about morals, looking at their relationship, and there is this supposed leader and follower, Oga and Omodo, master and servants, boss and whatever relationship. But it doesn't come into what we have on ground. What we have on ground, it's about people that are qualified to stand up for nomination. So if the other man that is the vice president chooses, to declare tomorrow he wants to run, you don't have to be emotional about it.
Who will you be supporting?
At this point, I don't know. Again, I said earlier that I will not begin to look at any one of them until I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more. I have what I want in my mind of what the Nigerian president 2023 will be. I will now begin to look at them one by one based on that.
Okay. Let's flip this to Lagos now. I understand there's another guest waiting, Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. We've got Honorable Ademori Kuye, who is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also of the Tinubu support group. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, with this, he said he's told the president of his intention to run, but he's not told Nigerians. I mean, being in that group of his support group, can I say this is what you've been waiting for? Because you might have known this all along, having been in that support group. Does it change anything for you in terms of, you heard Mr. Fawad, are you waiting for several other people? Are you going to wait for 2 weeks to see where this is headed? Or for you, as long as he's made this announcement, this is what you've always been waiting for?
Well, thank you very much for having me again. I'm glad to be in your midst today to talk to Nigerians about the news we had from the national leader of the party, Bola Tinubu, yesterday. I must say that I'm exceedingly glad by the news. And I'm glad, not for any selfish reason, but for the reason that this is what Nigerians have been waiting for. This is what Nigerians have been clamoring for.
Well, after all, members of the support group are Nigerians.
No, Nigerians. And I say this with all sense of modesty because, looking at Ashwaju, we're not talking here about the qualification because the Constitution is clear about what a presidential candidate must have. He must be a citizen of Nigeria by birth. That means you can't be a Nigerian just because you're married to a Nigerian and then run for a presidency. You must be above 35 years old. So the qualification, there's no problem about it. Electability is another thing. Capacity to lead Nigeria at a time like this. At a time like this. And I say this with all emphasis.
Why a time like this?
At a time like this, when Nigeria is faced with such mountainous, enormous challenges, you and I know what we're facing in this country. It's in the news every day. And we have somebody who has antecedents, who has precedents, who has records to show what he's been able to do in the small geographical environment called a state. And in any case, don't forget that Nigeria is a federation by virtue of Section 2 of the Constitution, it says Nigeria shall be a federation consisting of states and the Federal Capital Territory. We are hearing this from somebody who has displayed tremendous leadership quality in terms of economic sagacity to turn around the fortune of a state within that space of 8 years and laid the foundation of a new Lagos that has now become the envy of cities in Africa.
So now that this information is
So I'm
out
glad
there,
for Nigerians.
what about your party? Does this, because remember you're talking about having your convention. There's some people who say they've gone to court. Others are saying, no, we don't want this leadership to be at that convention, let alone think about organizing it or succeeding or continuing afterwards. So does this change the dynamics for you? Because it does appear that it could be that now that they have this information out there in the open, whatever anybody else is going to be doing in that party will be with the mindset that, okay, wait a minute, well, he is declared, so I now have to. The politicking gets a lot more dynamic.
It is expected. And this is how democracy grows. You know, if we talk about constitutional democracy, it means that every step of the way there will be tests. There will be situations where people will feel that, okay, we want to do it this way. I don't think that's the way it should be done. So we're not going to fight over it. We're going to go to court. But for me, I believe that the internal mechanism of resolving such disputes will still come into play. And some of those things will probably be resolved out of court.
So help me understand this, Honorable, or a lot of Nigerians as well. So he says he has informed the president of his ambition, and then he will at another time inform Nigerians. What's the difference, really? Because he came, addressed the press. Is that not by extension informing Nigerians? So why this intrigue, this suspense? To what point, really?
There's no suspense, actually. You know, in politics, you don't just, with an experienced man like that, you don't just jump into decision-making. You have to make consultations. And that's exactly what he has told Nigerians that he's doing right now.
But that decision has been made.
Excuse me. He said, I have informed Mr. President, who is the leader of the party. And, you know, he's been so careful about all of these things because long before now, people have been on his neck that he should declare, he should declare. But he said he did not want to distract the president from the business of governance and the people that are there.
What about now? 17 months.
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. We're already in election, yeah.
So we're already distracted.
No. We're already in election, yeah. If you look at American democracy, by now people are already on the field. But of course, in here, we understand the time that we are. We have to be sensitive to the plight of the people. We're just coming out of the problem of SARS. We're just coming out of COVID. And you know what the government has been doing to ameliorate on the economic down that has caused for the country.
Right. I understand, Honorable, but still, he has informed the president of his ambition. He has spoken to the press, by extension, Nigerians. I mean, if you go to our YouTube page, you see how much views. So Nigerians are aware as well. So is there a possibility that he will change his mind when he informs Nigerians?
There will be an open declaration where he's going to tell Nigerians that he's going to run, and he's going to tell Nigeria what he has to offer to Nigerians. Of course, he can use that little platform.
So that's what, before the party primaries?
It can be any time. It is his decision. It can be any time.
But the question...
Are you talking of the convention?
Yeah.
Before the convention? It can be any time.
We'll come to the convention, Honorable, but the question Kayode asked earlier is, he has told Mr. President of his ambition to run for president. Now he's consulting. What's the consultation for if the decision has already been made that he's ambitious to be president?
The consultation is to ensure that everybody is brought into the fold. You see, in politics, before you run, this is how we do it. Because I have been into this thing before. I've run for local government election. And when I wanted to run, the first thing I did was to go and meet, because it has to be my decision first. All right? I must accept to run. I had to go and meet the party leaders at my local level. And then I started going from place to place. And then I did an open declaration at the party LGA meeting. So these are the steps. You may not know these things, but this is the way we do it as politicians.
If you can speak to this, pardon me, before we go on break quickly, is there a possibility really, and this has been speculated widely, that this might be a distraction? All these announcements, this move, the intrigues, the suspects might be a distraction, as though clearing the way for someone else. Might this change?
You see, Ashwaju is not a small fry in the politics of Nigeria. Even the opposition are going to start recalculating all the zonings that they have done before in PDP. They are going to sit down again and start rejigging. Trust me, a lot of things are going to change now. Like Chamberlain said, the dynamics are going to change now. People are going to start looking, okay, this man is here now. Who's going to run against him? All the other parties are going to start considering that.
Okay, so sounds like political chess. But we'll be back in a moment. He'll tell us more, and just hang on. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, you know, this coming after the president told us, my colleagues, in that interview that he will not name his successor, or whether he was joking or not, it appeared as though there was some sort of vacuum in people's minds saying, oh, so who's likely going to be Mr. President's successor? And bam, this announcement comes in, filling up that vacuum, perhaps in people's minds. So working on timing. But it could be that there will be other people, there are other people in the same party from the Southwest who have the same ambition. So assuming that were the case, what does this do to the question or narrative out there as to whether or not the party will support or will adopt a consensus candidate, presidential candidature? What do you think about that?
Well, the constitution of the party as presently it exists provides for consensus candidates through primary or otherwise. And I believe that you know that Mr. President knows his responsibility as a president of the country. Section 14 is very clear that the primary responsibility of the government shall be to provide security for lives and properties.
For the consensus arrangement?
No. I'm coming to the joke that you talked about. And I'm sure that if Mr. President had named anybody, he surely has the capacity.
So maybe he was saying, Mr. President, don't think about anybody else. Perish that thought. I want to succeed you.
No. You see, the visit must have been programmed even before the interview. Because Mr. President is not that kind of person. He's a very busy president. He's not that kind of person that you book an appointment with to see today, there. Tomorrow they tell you to come.
No, but this is leader versus leader.
No. This must have been in the pipeline.
But the emergency meetings, don't forget. Meetings that
Leader
happen.
to leader.
This one was not an emergency meeting. I can assure you about that. That's number one. Number two is the fact that now that he has said to Nigerians through that little platform for now that, yes, he has told the leader of the party that he's going to contest. I'm sure that some other people, some other likely contestants that have been thinking that he may not contest, because we get to hear a lot of things in our political circles. I know some people who have said that except Asiwaju is contesting, except that he's contesting. If he's not contesting, I'm going to contest against any other person. Now that he has announced this, we're going to have a narrower field. A narrower
What does that mean? Is that a consensus arrangement?
It is likely to lead to that. It's likely to lead to that because, you see, why is a political party formed? Governance. It's about election. And why do you want to go into election? You want to win. How do you win? You must have a sellable candidate. You must have a candidate that has a national outlook. Tell me of any name in Nigeria, apart from Buhari, probably Obasanjo because he's been a president before, of other governors. If I asked you of the name of governors that served with Asiwaju in 1999 to 2007 in some states, you probably won't remember them again.
What do you think about the speculation?
It's a household name for crying out loud.
What do you think about the speculation as to the vice president running?
No, the vice president is qualified to run. The vice president is qualified to run. But like my brother in Abuja, in your Abuja studio just said, there might be some issue of moral questions.
What type?
About that.
About the vice president, if he wants
running
to run?
Against Asiwaju.
And
I say that because of my sense of the history of the two of them working together. I worked under them when I was a council chairman, when Asiwaju was the leader. And I know that even before I came into politics, I was into legal practice. I know what the Minister of Justice used to be. You know, you could go to bed without reading anything to go and do a case with lawyers from the Minister of Justice before Asiwaju became the governor. And what he was able to achieve through Professor Osinbajo in the Ministry of Justice, because of course, he must give him the necessary support and logistics that he needed to turn around the workings in the Ministry of Justice in Lagos. And you know that at that time, over 13 cases were done by Lagos State against the federal government on issues of constitution.
Honorable, we're flipping this to Abuja, but are you still saying that they still have the, even though he's the vice president, but the Asiwaju still has like the principal and what subordinate relationship with him? Is that what you're saying? Because Mr. Fuadoki believes that they're contemporaries, they're colleagues, as it were.
I can say that. The owner of this studio is a journalist. You're a journalist. All right? You're a journalist. You're contemporaries. But there is a relationship beyond that between you and that man. There's a relationship.
Even if I'm the vice president?
Even if you become a broadcaster with CNN.
Vice president.
I said, even if you leave the studio and go to CNN, you will never forget your relationship with the man you started with. I'm going to see him tomorrow and say, to hell with him. Will you do that?
Well, he has not told Nigerians. Let's toss it to Abuja now. Magbe.
Well, I know Mr. Okie's been listening very intently, and that's a big moral question he's raised, which you highlighted earlier. But you say, no, it's not a question of boss and employee. This is their associates. But it will seem that this moral question does indeed loom large. Is it bigger than we're making it out to be?
You know why we find ourselves where we are today? Listening to Ademori in Lagos, you can see me laughing. Laughing because very clearly, if you know Ademori Kuye well, you know that apart from being a lawyer, is also a very coherent personality. But talking is even having difficulties explaining some things. And that is the Nigeria. You can take this discussion as a mirror of what the average Nigerian, particularly the average politician's mind is. We many times than not refuse to situate issues properly. There is a relationship between the two of them, granted. On this basis, in this business, the two of them supposedly have been shadow boxing about wanting to be or not. Today, one has come out to say, I want to be. Let's wait and see if the other will come out. If it does, the issue of Oga and Omodo does not arise at all, at all. The issue is about who will be Nigerian president. But let me say this very clearly, as I always say. If we are not careful in this country, particularly in the Southwest, we will have another 1999 situation on our hands. Let not be emotional about this. Let not begin to talk about politically who is number one or is number two. Let us look at the individual. We are at a crossroad. For goodness sake, don't let us dwell in what I call inanities. Let us look at where we have found ourselves, unfortunately.
This is where we found ourselves.
Okay. Therefore, the issue of if Aaron will be Aaron should not come out. The issue should be about, let us look for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, up to Z, and interrogate them one by one. There are several questions. All of them will need to answer. Several. I won't start that now. Don't ask.
While we, look forward to the opportunity to be able to ask all of these people who will eventually come out, and even those who have eventually declared their intention to run, critical questions. We must understand that political parties are the platform upon which these people will run. And we all understand that, the way it works within political parties, many times people like us are on the outside. We might not exactly understand. That's why we seek the insights of those of you who are on the inside to understand how this affects the dynamics. Good enough for your party, you don't have zoning as an arrangement. But some people will say that it is something that it is...
It is a convention, like it or not.
Exactly. So whether it is in your constitution or not, it is something that people tend to, to follow in a gentlemanly manner. So looking at all the people who you have termed pretenders, and the fact that this is no ordinary kingmaker, this is as big a kingmaker as they come, throwing his hat into the ring so early on in 2023, how does this affect the dynamics? People are still trying to wrap their head around it.
Exactly what I am saying. As a matter of fact, we will all be doing a disservice and will be very, very unfair to Asiwaju Bola Tinubu when we gloat over the issue of if Asiwaju is running. Why would XYZ want to run, or should XYZ run? In politics, in political consideration of certain issues, you don't bring emotions.
Yeah, but even you admitted.
Which is what a lot of you are trying to allude to.
Mr. Oki, even you admitted
That-
in the Yoruba adage which you quoted
Yes.
that what Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu
Yes.
has done is to
Yes.
tell anybody that if you have the heart,
Yes, come
throw
in.
your heart in.
Therefore, people like Ademori and others out there should not gloat about if Ashwaju is running. Because he alluded to it, that some have said, oh, I want to run, but only if Ashwaju is not running. Then such persons, in the first instance, are not worthy of being considered at all. We're talking about Nigeria. We're talking about the highest office. We're looking for a chief executive officer of Nigeria. Whoever feels if A is running, then I will not run. It's bringing emotion before reality. Let us be practical. I really want to be very, very fair to all, particularly Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Ademori has said so much about his capacity, his ability, his grassroots network. He should not add to it that, today, apart from President Muhammadu Buhari, possibly President Obasanjo, that there is no other Nigerian, that is that popular or that is that qualified. We will be unfair to the man. He is encouraged by his declaration yesterday. He's encouraged others who are equally qualified, who have something to offer Nigeria and Nigerians to come out. And let us leave it at that. So and the man cleverly said to you journalists yesterday that he does not want to discuss individuals, rather he wants to discuss himself and what he has to offer. It's the same thing we should look from others. Don't let us, you see, the moment you begin to look at Mr. A and not Mr. B, again, we will miss the point. We missed this point in 2007. We missed it in 2011. We may miss it ultimately in 2023. My position is very clear. Let all the pretenders come out. Now we have a contender. Let all the other pretenders come out so we can have contest. The contest, we all need to now look thorough, very clearly. You see, who the cat fits. Other than that, we will not be doing right. Ademori know, and he knows very well in his heart of heart, because between us as brothers, we've had occasion to discuss this issue. And I'm sure there are some things you will not want me to say. Because it's speaking on behalf of a support group, fantastic. But he should also be very objective. Let us look at Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Let us look at what he has done. Let's use that to interrogate his capacity for this job and see if he has it. Rather than wanting to now comparing what may or may not be. That's all I'm saying.
So let me ask you what you now make of those who will say something. Someone's been quoted. Let me just be very specific. I think this is Chief Bode George, who's also said, who's reacted to to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit to the president, and he says this declaration is a huge joke.
Ogboni Ibinka Bode George, has a right to his opinion as I do to mine. That's the way he feels. He takes nothing back. Unfortunately for Ogboni Ibinka, he's not of the APC stock. So he should keep that, until after a candidate of APC has emerged. So if it is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu who emerged, then let him come out why he thinks it's a big joke. Other than that, I won't dwell on that. I will not. It's an opinion.
Okay. So, I mean, what I mean is you certainly will not dismiss those. Or how will I put it now?
I'm dismissing it. I'm dismissing it in capital.
I'm not phrasing this properly. What I'm saying is that you will not take into cognizance those who dismiss this aspiration.
Absolutely not. Listen. Number one, the man is not in APC. So we're talking about a contest for nomination. So for someone outside of that family to say XYZ is a joker, in my opinion, Ogboni Ibiyinka is a joker.
Let's flip this to Lagos. I understand Chairman has questions for you.
Well, actually, to get Honorable Ademorin to say some things, because he says that you have a lot that you know, you're not telling us. But from what he says as to you wanting to dismiss that there will be or should be other contestants, he says no, that cannot be the case.
I don't think he's clear about what I said in the beginning. I've said that constitutional provision is very clear about who is qualified to run as president. And as many as have that qualification are there, a lot of them in the party. But of course, it is not only about being constitutionally qualified. That was what I said. It is not about just being constitutionally qualified. Mr. Vice President has been in the saddle, like my brother rightly said. He's been in the saddle, he's worked as the chairman of the Economic Council. He's seen how the country is going. And he's ably qualified too. But I have said about other people who will have contested, and I've told us in confidence that if Ashwaju is running, they're not going to run. I'm not going to take that back.
Are some of them governors?
I'm not going to disclose
You're
that
not
to you.
naming names, you're just giving
I'm not going
scenario.
to say that to you here. But of course, let's go back to 2015 when the president was running. And there were quite a number of other people that wanted to run that the leadership of the party at that time had to talk to. Let's narrow the field so that we don't have so much aspirants. So that by the time we come out of the primaries, we are not seriously divided. The process of reconciliation can then be very easy for all of us. And that was what made us win the election.
So if the party says, having done it that way, and then assuming the vice president decides to run or the party says, no, get into the field. This, we know, is not just going to be up to both of them. The party will have a huge say on what happens at the end of the day. So if that happens, that VP gets into the ring and some other persons, does that change anything for you?
You see, I don't think the scenario you have painted is the kind of situation that the party wants to have itself in. And the reason is very simple. The party is always looking for a soft landing, a situation where there won't be crisis, all right? They will probably suggest consensus, that the aspirants go talk to each other and see if they can agree on one or two of them. Of course, we're just talking about two people here now, Ashwaju and the vice president. There are still going to be other people the moment it is zoned to the southwest, all right? And even when it is zoned, some people from other zones are going to say, but that's a party decision, we are not abiding by it.
Do we take it for granted that it will be zoned to the southwest?
It is the most reasonable thing to do for this party. It is the most reasonable thing to do for this party.
Is that the popular position within the party?
Is that what?
Is that the popular position within the party?
Popular, even in the north. We have been to so many places in the process of this, networking, dealing with people on this TSG platform. And I can tell you that presently there are over 1,800 support groups for Ashwaju spread throughout the country.
So when you said that Nigerians are actually clamoring, that's what you meant, those support groups, not 200 million Nigerians.
Of course, in APC, we have our data. We have our party membership register. And we are presently talking to APC members, because we're still going into the primary.
I just wanted to clear the air on that Nigerians, because it can be quite vague. They can think, oh is
we
it
are,
the whole country
are
that
we,
is asking
are we
him
not
to run?
Nigerians?
Exactly. So it's
Are
good
we
you
not
cleared that out, because I
Nigerians?
think
Are
Chamberlain...
you saying we are not Nigerians?
No, Chamberlain asked and you sort of glossed over it. So it's good to be clear. But let's...
Are you saying you can take 20 million Nigerians out of Nigeria?
So it's good you have put a figure to it, 20 million Nigerians. But let's talk about the CV now, which is very important. I mean, we've thrown up two names, the Vice President and Asiwaju. I mean, we know the Vice President. He's Vice President. What he's been up to in the past, 6, 7, 8 years, has been the chair of the Economic Council. He's had to sit in for the President a few times. But for the national leader of the APC, as you call him, I mean, we know he was governor from 1999 to 2007. But ever since that time, what has he been up to that people can say, okay, you've done this, then we can actually line up behind you?
Asiwaju, from 2007 to now, has been involved in a lot of things. Before he came into politics, he was working with Mobu. He had his own business. He's gone back to his own business. He's still doing his business. He's a staff consultant. He's an economist.
Oh, he's still a consultant?
Yes. To a lot of countries, if you don't know. To a lot of countries. Nations.
On what basis? Politically? Economically?
No, economically. To help them develop their economy.
Like what country, for example?
Many countries in Africa. Find out that yourself.
Oh, which is why we're asking you. I mean, you're meant to tell us about your candidate.
I thought you were selling your candidate.
The Ghana economy that we're talking about now, Asiwaju was part of the person, the team that helped them change. Their over-concentration on gold sales. Now in Ghana, what they are reaping in as high GR from tax is enormous. And you know what it's doing to their infrastructure there. Liberia, Sierra Leone, Central African countries, name them.
Okay.
Is there?
Well, he asked for it, so...
So many parts.
All right, we need to wrap up at this point. Honorable Ademorin Kuya is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also a member of the Tinubu support group. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me. God bless.
Thank you. I think I'm going to be taking your last words as well. For those who are still trying to wrap their heads around this, what would you be saying to them?
Don't jump into concluding anything. Let us wait and see more pretenders coming out to want to contend, and we can begin to look at. As far as I'm concerned, I will want to urge Nigerians, therefore, that we should not take people on their face values, but to interrogate wella, because we need a president that will take us out of the Golgotha.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fuadoki, who's a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, and speaking to us here in our Abuja studios. We take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Please stay with us.